Bing. This is your chance to jump off if you don't want to be recorded.
Okay, bye.
Not you.
Oh, no, that would be a little difficult. But we're going to ask our guests, Cynthia and Robin, if you would mute for a minute. And welcome everybody to Intuition of the Soul. It's been a little while since we've been able to have our programs because of the Nomad and Mercury retrograde, and you pick a reason why.
Really. The top 10 reasons.
Yeah, and we're back, able to have people come and talk to us and explore. We've got 8 people online with us right now, so that's great. So Ian, thank you for rescheduling. We each have one of the reschedules.
Yes.
And of course, I'm Kitty, and I'm here with Amy J in Intuition of the Soul, and we're here live from Australia. You are all watching the future if you're in the States.
I love that.
It's Friday.
It's Friday already. So it's such a wild concept, you know. I know in this whole world that and I want to let people know as soon as in about 2 or 3 more minutes, we won't let anybody back on live because it's really hard to have people jumping in and off. But it's really an interesting concept, and of course in this psychic world about time doesn't have any meaning, but yet I'm talking to the future, so how does that work, you know?
So then that means Ian's talking to the past.
Yes.
Anything you want to tell us about this next 14 hours that we should be taking care of?
That's right.
As we're about to travel through it. So I remember being in the Netherlands and calling my parents, and they were in last year. And I was like, wow, this is an odd concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when I never thought of that.
So we'll just wait a couple minutes, and we have different people jumping on. And if you're watching us live, please say hi so we can see who's all with us. And I've got my phone open, so if people have questions or there's something they want to ask for clarification about.
And you still have time to jump on. We'll give you a couple more minutes, or you can watch us live on the page. So poor Ian's like, okay, we're just gonna sit here now.
So what's your weather like? Let's always talk about weather. Nice.
Well, it's windy at the moment, and it's about to be a really wet weekend, a wet and windy weekend. So I don't mind the wind because my hobby is wing foiling. So I have like a surfboard with a hydrofoil underneath it, and then I have a handheld kite, and I go flying across the water. So I like the wind, but not so much. Not keen on the rain.
No, that kind of takes the fun away from that whole piece of it. So, and now, are you moving into your cold season?
Yes.
Or you never? Yeah.
I'm moving in from short sleeve shirts to long sleeve shirts. That's about as cold as it gets.
And of course, we're headed the opposite way right now. Last weekend we jumped into the 90s. And
from the 40s to the 90s is always really good too, you know.
Yeah, the daffodils and the flowers aren't real happy. Those early spring flowers just go, and which is too bad. And then right back down into the 40s. So yay! So
all right. Well, I'll watch, Kitty. If you want to we'll just get started. And
so anyway, we really thank you for coming and talking to us. Ian is the psychic junkie, which just all by itself is gotta tell us how you got that name.
I love that name.
If you'd introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into, first of all, psychic anything, and then kind of where you are and a little bit about what you do, and we'll listen. And you're very funny, so we'll have a good time. So.
I was trying. I mean, I've got a bit of a story, but I don't want to go on too long. But when you say where did it all start, a psychic junkie started in 2005, but my sort of journey into this realm started in the late 80s, and I was just a country rep. I used to cover a whole area about 5,000 kilometers, which is I think about 3,000 miles. So that was my territory. I used to go all over the place, but I ended up I managed to base myself on a little tropical island in our north of our state. It was just absolute little paradise. But I used to drive. I used to work for a week. I used to go away on a Monday, come back sort of Thursday afternoon. But it was a ferry ride. It was a 40-minute ferry ride. And the old ferry is about 10-15 minutes now with the fast ones. But and it was the tropics. It's very, very hot. And there was one day, and it's a day that I'll never forget. But I was just sitting on the ferry, and right opposite me, now it's hot, so I've got t-shirt and shorts on, and right opposite me was a vicar, you know, with the dog collar and the black gear and everything. And I mean, like, it just looked really weird. I was just thinking, God, you know, all that, he must be sweating, you know, like it's just so hot. And then I started thinking, look at this guy, like he has such a belief in something that he's wearing the uniform for his belief.
Mhm.
And then I thought, wow, you know, what if he's wrong? What a waste of his life. Because I had no spiritual sort of understanding at all at this point. I was just, you know, getting on with things and whatever. But I just thought, what if he's wrong? What a waste of his life if he's wrong, you know, like all this. Then the kicker came in and thought, what if I'm wrong? What a waste of my life, you know, if there is something there. Yeah. And it's just that question. And I sort of looked up and I just thought, okay, if there is anything, you know, come and tell me. Don't just sort of like, I had no connection with anything. But if there's some great power, then you've got to have some intelligence. Come and tell me. Mm-hmm. And that, and just know that was the sort of thing. So I got off the ferry and I was away on a trip or whatever. But when I came back at the Thursday, the Thursday afternoon, off the ferry, walking up the big long sort of what they call it, boardwalk or whatever. Gangway, yeah. And I had a friend on the island. This is just a little tropical island. There's only 4,000 residents on the whole place. It was just a tiny little place, but it was a bit of a touristy spot. And I had a friend who had a secondhand bookshop and a hire sort of thing. He used to hire bikes out and things like that. But I don't know, so out of normal. He came rushing down the boardwalk thing to me. He said, Ian. He said, hi Ryan. He said, this book came in and I thought of you and you just got to read it. And I thought, I don't read books. I really did not watch it. I was just getting on with things. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, it's Shirley MacLaine. It's called Out on a Limb. And I thought, who the hell's Shirley MacLaine? You know, like I didn't really think anything, you know, and why. And I just said, look, no, put it back in your shop and sell it, Brian. I you know, it's I haven't got time to, I don't know, it just didn't do anything. And I actually said no. The next trip, so after the weekend, Monday, I was off and it was a country run. It was 1,000 kilometers into the middle of nowhere and 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles, just middle of nowhere. Anyway, I used to stop. I used to drive most of the day and stop in this little motel in the middle of nowhere. And back in those days, in the late 80s, there was just one TV station. It was the broadcast, the main government broadcaster. And in the motel, there'd be a TV. And that was about it. You know, you get in and it was just some air conditioning because it was so hot outside and TV. And then in the morning, I'd be driving for hours again. But I turned it on and it was sort of all like this. And I thought, oh, that's strange. And all of a sudden, the program came on and it was Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, the miniseries that she made.
Oh my God.
And I just thought, oh, that's that, you know, that's that book thing that Brian was talking about, just that, you know, I've got this book for you. I mean, nobody's ever said that. And there it was on the TV and I had nothing else to do but watch it. And then by the time I'd seen that episode, it was like, oh, I got to go get that book. So I got to the next, the main town where I was going to be doing some work and I bought the book and my partner used to travel with me and she was reading the book while we were driving. I mean, it just had hours and hours of driving. So me sort of saying, you know, if there's something out there and then this coming up on the TV,
Yeah.
Just to jump forward another sort of month or so later, when I was back in that area again, I was back in the same motel, and it was back to just the ABC. There was just the one channel again. And when I checked out the next morning, I said to the lady, you know, Mary or whatever, what was, you know, like last time I was here, you had another channel or whatever. Oh, she started cussing and swearing. She said, God, she said, blah, 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 blah. Fred blogs from such and such a place. She said, he sold me this pirate satellite dish, and I was picking up so this broadcast was being broadcast from Melbourne or something up to this North Queensland TV station, where they would then put the commercials in and then broadcast it through the TV. But so she was picking it up without the commercials. That's why all this sort of fuzz was going. She said, I paid such and such $1,000 for that. She said, do you know that only worked one night and it all packed up?
Oh my God.
It was like,
You can't
oh.
make that stuff up, can you? I mean, first you just went to that, you just simply asked that question.
Yeah.
And then all those, you know, synchronicities just kept
They're
coming for you. That's just amazing.
Just happened. And it was like, and from that point, really, it was just endless synchronicities like that. Little things. It just went on and on and on. And I ended up opening a New Age bookstore in the town where it's city sort of that I was living in, because I was getting in. I ended up, you know, buying all the books, buying all the tape courses like you do. And I was thinking, God, you know, I'm spending all this money on these things. And I was in the video movie industry. I used to supply the video shops and you know, movies. That's when you start getting a bit of a sort of spiritual sort of understanding. The things that used to sell was crime and violence and smut so there I was. My business was everything horrible, and my passion was everything sort of like enlightening. So I had this real sort of conflict. You know, that's my income, but I want to do that, and I just decided I would have I would open, you know, like a New Age bookstore, and that's what I did. That's really how I got into it, and then I was just in it, boots and all. But there was all sorts of synchronicities that even led me to that. I mean, when I decided I was going to open the store, and I had back then I came across a guy called Stuart Wilde. He's passed now, but metaphysical, amazing. You either love him or you hate him. He was just very, very funny. But I bought every one of his sort of tape courses. You know, those old things that were like 8 cassettes in the thing, and you'd listen to it. So I had all.
I remember.
I had Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb.
Yes. Okay. Good. Well, it's like I had all these tape sets and things. So when I was still repping, but I was talking to my friends on the island. I was saying, I'm going to open, you know, a shop with all this stuff because you can't buy it anywhere. It was all sort of strange. And he said, oh, great. But he said, you got to do market research. He said, leave. You can't just sort of go in there and open up a store. I said, oh, market research. You know, he said, I didn't have a business brain at all. I just had a passion. But he said, leave all those, you know, leave some stock in my shop. He had a little tourist shop. And when you go away for the week, you know, you come back, if anybody buys any of it, at least you know there's a bit of a market for it. So, okay, so I put sort of about a half a dozen of these Stuart Wilde things in his shop, and went away, came back, he sold them all. But wow, you know, I put another sort of half a dozen in, went away, came back, he sold them all again. I thought, okay, that is it. So I went in and I just leased a shop in the town, and I just sort of got on with it. Yeah. Sometimes the other thing with that, another synchronicity about some months later, I had the shop all open, everything, and it made a profit from the very first week. It all worked. You know, it was just, when you're on path, when you're on track, things work. Yeah. And but I met Pam, who's now, she's been a lifelong friend. But we were at a party, and we were talking about Stuart Wilde or whatever, and she said, oh yeah, she said, Steve used to have some of those in his shop. She said, I bought them all, she said. And she said, all of them. So my market research was actually one customer. because she bought everything. So it wasn't even that. So just lots of synchronicities like that. And then
But that's a beautiful point right there, though. Someone telling you, don't do it till you do market research.
yes,
And
yeah,
if you would have done that, who knows, what would have happened. So I just love the fact that you're like, I'm just going to do it because you knew it was your path, or you trusted that it was your path.
By this time, I was trusting it, and I just loved it all. It was just fascinating and everything. So I just carried on and did that, opened that. And then I had people coming. I mean, the psychics. I mean, it was all, Shirley MacLaine's, all the books, everything that I was had been reading. I just ordered everything in. I'd only order 1 or 2 copies of everything, and then as things sold, I would order more. I mean, I did it on a shoestring. It was just crazy. But that ran very well. And then people would come in the shop and they say, "Oh, have you got a psychic? Have you got a tarot reader?" And I thought, no. And then someone else would come in. Have you got a reader? No. Someone else would come in. Have you got a reader? And then a friend of mine on the island, little Richard, who was one of our little group. We used to meditate, and we were just sort of souls discovering it all, I suppose, all at the same time. But he came in the shop one day, and I knew he could do tarot readings. I said, "Richard, get in the back. You're now a tarot reader." He said, "No." He said, "I don't have any tarot cards." And I took a pack off the shelf and put them in his hand and said, "Get in there." So there we started doing tarot readings, and there was, that all worked. And then, I don't know, a year or so later, he was moving away. He was leaving town and going away. And I just knew that I didn't want to do it, but I knew it was like I just needed to do it to be the reader, but it scared the life out of me. And I just thought, if that I can, and I still remember that first sort of paid reading. It was $25 or something, back in those days, but it was like, oh, I was so scared. I sort of knew I could do it from everything that led up to that point, but to actually sort of do it. And I just remember the first booking, and I was thinking, God, if another reader had walked through the door, I would have, I was charging $25. I would have paid him $500 to get in the back and do it, just so that I didn't have to.
But that's really important to share, because one of the things this platform is about is collecting people's stories and how they do it. And there is sometimes we have a misconception that there's a strike of lightning and a door opens and something walks through and says, waiting for the magic zing or whatever. And it's great to hear the story. I love that you said, okay, if you want me to do this, show me. Just
yeah. And I didn't want to do it. But that's right. The opportunities come, but we still have to take that scary step. And that for me was the scary step at the time. I mean, life's been full of scary steps. And when I've sort of gone off my path, when as far as my history, I would sort of get out of the spiritual realm altogether and get back into the real world. And I would drive the bus. I'd always crash it. And then I'd come back to the spiritual world and everything would just flow. So, in old age, I've given up trying. I just do what I'm supposed to be doing. But that first reading, I mean, I was so sort of scared. And there was a guy sitting with me, and I can remember the other thing that came up was I was picking up some things, and it was about a relationship or something. And he was saying, no. And I was thinking, do I tell him what I'm seeing? Or do I tell him what he wants to know so that he just says yes, because he's saying no to everything. I thought, anyway, I'm not clever enough to tell him what he wants to know. I'm not clever enough to make stuff up. So it was like, I can throw a bunch of tarot. I don't know how to read tarot. I don't know the meaning of the cards, but I can throw cards on and they jump up at me and I can just say stuff. So and it was this sort of relationship thing. And I was saying, look, I know that there was a separation or whatever. The guy was talking about reconnecting. And I said, the guy, it is the man that is doing the traveling. It is the guy that's doing the traveling. He said, no, I'm not going anywhere. And like, all I can tell you is, it's a guy. The guy is doing the traveling. I'm not going to make anything up, whatever. He said, well, I am gay. I thought, oh, they're both guys, and he'd never told me that, and I didn't pick that up. And he was arguing because I was just, thinking of it. But so that was my first, and then, that point of, do you just say what you get, even though it might sound like it's wrong, or do you just sort of entertain people?
Yeah.
And that was that. So that's how I got into it all. I'm just trying to think. I've got a million stories, but is there any questions?
We love stories, but that's really important because so many. I can't tell you how many courses or classes I've taken where one of the big questions is, how do you know if you're just not making it up? That's that imposter fear. There are a lot of people that is a huge fear. I get something, but maybe I just made it up. And so, to say, I don't know what else it is, but there's a guy and it's a travel.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's the thing with working as a psychic is about saying what comes in rather than trying to see stuff, trying to get information. It's a very passive thing. I'm in awe, Kitty. You're an astrologer, and people sort of say they expect me to know all sorts of stuff that I don't have a clue. Because in astrology, you have to know stuff. There's lots of thinking. You've got to plot this and plot that, and this comes that way. Well, my sort of work, I don't have to know anything. I really don't have to know anything. It's just let it out. So maybe the dumber we are, the better psychics we are.
No, but so all right. So you kind of woke up, and you woke up at a time where a lot of people were like, that was not a. I mean, Shirley MacLaine really talk about out on a limb. She really was out on a limb.
Oh yeah,
it was really on a limb.
Got called. She got made fun of by every American comedian there was, and she lost parts in plays, and so you're in that same timeline. So what happened from there? So you opened a store, which was pretty darn brave.
Again, the reason I opened the store was that through Shirley MacLaine's books and Out on a Limb and everything, she talked about Edgar Cayce, The Sleeping Prophet.
Yes.
And I thought, oh God, I've got to get a book on. That was the next thing, like what's my next thing? Edgar Cayce. I need that. And back then, the sort of new agey books were in sort of hippy dippy, fairy sort of places, and I just didn't consider myself that sort of type of person. And this is sort of my my fight with my ego. I can remember finding up to some little back street, the little sort of hippy dippy, fairy lovely place with these new age books, and I looked through the window and I could see the Edgar Cayce book on the shelf. I thought, I want to get that, but I don't want anyone to see me going into this place. Like I was just, that was it. It was, could you imagine? All I can associate it with is it would be the same feeling as if I wanted to go into a sex shop. I wouldn't want anyone to see me doing that. Well, that's what I felt like going into the sort of the new agey shop, and I went up and down a little bit, and then I really did. I took a deep breath, held my breath, and went in, picked the book up, bought the book. She put it in a brown paper bag, and I came out again. And I thought, that was me buying Edgar Cayce. Oh dear. And
Well, in some ways we are luckier right now as these people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
People
it's like,
oh, and they're excited about it.
that's why I thought with the shot, I thought these sort of books, they shouldn't be hidden up the back alleys. They need to be in the shopping mall with every other store. They're like, why are they all hidden away? And that was my thinking then of why I open the store. And I did. I opened it up in the main store and everything else. But yeah, isn't it easier now?
It is easier now, yeah.
But it went very well because there was a lot of people like you that, you know, didn't know where to get, you know, the stuff they wanted and you know, that kind of thing. Cause it was like, it just wasn't very available at that time, you know, and the interest was there, but a lot of people were closet interest, you know, they're like,
well, that's what like me, definitely, you know, we're all sort of secretly sort of learning all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ancient Wisdom was the name of my bookstore back then, and I had that for about 5 years, and then decided to sell that. Somebody sort of wanted to somebody wanted to buy it rather than me wanting to sell it, and I did that, and then I went off on another way. But it was jumping ahead then from to Psychic Junkie about 2000. Like I came back to, I'd been traveling around the world for about 7 or 8 years. I was in all sorts of funny places, doing all sorts of funny things, and I came back sort of starting over again. And I thought I'd started being a psychic on a psychic line. That was me. You know, you got to make a living, and I didn't want to go off and do, you know, normal stuff anymore. And a friend of mine that used to work for me in Ancient Wisdom, she said, come on the psychic line, you know, it's great, and this and that and the other. So I went on a psychic line, and I would start here in Australia. I would start at 6 a.m. till about midday, non-stop. And it was one of the big companies that advertised, and so the clients were all sort of UK, Ireland, Canada, US, really back there. So my early mornings were the evenings and afternoons, and where the big markets were, and it was just back to back. And I worked there for quite a while. And you know, if you're okay with this, everybody, you know, your clients come back. So everything was sort of you know, repeat business. So the next stage of my journey was then I realized that I was like 100% committed to this one company, and I just had this sort of sense that, you know, what happens if the guy that owns that gets run over by a bus or something, you know, it's like everything's wiped out again, you know. So I thought, that's when the internet was there now, obviously. I thought I would try and look at sort of getting online somehow. And I remember the little package that I found. It's a company called SBI. It's about $300 a year, and they have this sort of 10-day action plan. So they say, you know, whatever your passion is, we help you get it onto the web. And I thought, okay. And I bought the package, got in and looked at it, and it was like, it all made sense. But, you know, it was just it overpowered me, you know, all this stuff. And I thought, this 10-day action guide, I thought, I'm never going to do that in 10 days. Like, oh no, it was just overwhelming. I thought, I want something easy. So I just sort of asked for my money back, and they gave me the refund with a smile. They were really, I thought, well, they're nice people, you know, like I was expecting to have an argument, get my $300 back, but they gave me the $300 back, no problem. The trouble was, I'd seen it. I'd been in and I'd seen it, and I was looking at all the other get rich quick online scheme things that might sort of help me get, and they just didn't make sense. And I thought, you know what, that 10-day action guide, that I don't have to do that in 10 days. I could take 10 months. You know, what if it took me 10 months? Like, if I got there, it wouldn't matter. So I actually went and bought it back, and I started again, and I'm still with them. I pay $300 a year for my business overhead. That's it. And they taught me how to get my information up on the web in the way that Google and Bing want to see it. So, and one of the things then was like the domain name was actually the last thing that you did. You sort of worked out all this other stuff first, but the Psychic Junkie just came from whatever the research was, and it just seemed like fun, you know, and it's been there ever since. And then with the website building up, they taught me the affiliate marketing side of it. So I would get a lot of traffic from the Google and Bings, and then I would put the adverts on for the big networks again, the Keens and the Cassambas and all the things. But I would be paid a referral fee when they come to my site. I'd get the referral fee from that. So I was still working the psychic line, but I was doing this when I was just playing around. But it got to the point where my referral income was matching what I was doing working. So I just stopped working. It's like, again, I'm not that bright. That much money for doing nothing, that much money for working. Okay, I'm going to do nothing. And so
That sounds pretty bright.
Okay, well, and I just sort of carried on with that. And I do some readings myself, but I don't like too much work, so I still do the referral stuff on there. But I have I don't know what it is. It's just, again, following the path, and I sort of have, it's like I do. My clients are all executives in one form or another, and it's just, that's the niche that ended up, they just sort of find their way to me.
So what do you mean you do the referrals? I'm just curious. You refer.
Okay, so someone would come to my website. You know, when you go to a website and there's adverts all over it. I mean, Google AdSense, for instance, you know, I used to do that in the beginning. That paid quite well, but that annoys me with all their ads popping up everywhere. So I just put, so someone comes on my site and there'll be a little link there saying, you know, have a psychic reading, 3 minutes free and 50% off or whatever. Well, the company that run the big networks, I mean, they are very, very busy because they have these massive advertising budgets. So they'll pay a very sort of healthy fee to get the referral. So when people come on my site and they click on that and they go to that, it's tracked with the cookies. You know, you go on the site now and it says, do you accept the cookies or whatever? Well, those cookies track the sales links. And then so when someone goes on there and they have a reading, just for getting the client, I get a one-time fee. And that, you know, that adds up when you've got a lot of traffic, when you've got a lot of people coming on the website.
And so when people search, then the word psychic pulls up then. So.
Yeah, so when people are searching on Google for things, now that's the package that I have. So I know what people are searching for. So I would write content around what they're looking for. So you look at lots and lots of searches for this particular keyword. And Google also tells, like, you can also find out how many, like the percentage of pages that they would have indexed for that. So you're looking for a lot of people searching for that, and not many pages with it. So that's like easy to get found on Google. So when people find my site from going on Google search engines and Bing and things like that, and then they click on my adverts and then they go off. So that's an income stream.
So do you use your intuition then for who you put on your site, and how do you pick that? Because because you do a lot with your own intuition, like you said. Your comment was, when I leave the path, you know, it blows. So I just now, so it, you know, I think
that's, I know you mean, it's, well, they're just companies that I like having on there. I mean, I get asked to be promoted on there, to promote on there, and some of them just sort of I don't like, and I don't know what it is. I just don't put them up. You know, it's got to feel right, and that's everything. It's just like I've learned to live by my intuition. That's just what I do.
See, and Ian, I think this is fascinating because we often think it's got to be a reading and it's got to be in a, you know, the room with our incense, and but you're still using it. You're still a bridge. You're still in that world, but you have a different role in that world.
Yes,
I think that.
I had that thought with the psychic lines as well. I thought, I mean, I was used to sort of being in the room with people. How am I going to sort of do a reading with someone? Like, I'm in Australia, someone's in Ireland,
Mhm.
How am I? Anyway, I just did it, and there was no different. There's absolutely zero difference with someone on a phone line or on a Zoom call or whatever. So it doesn't matter where we are. If we connect with people, we can do the work. You just, in fact, I don't do much. I don't do any local stuff here. I like my privacy. I'm an introvert, so I can tune in and do a reading. That stress, when I just reminded me another little thing, just people that are watching this who are into it, and they know that they should be doing some sort of working in it, but they're too scared or whatever. That was the 80s I got into this. So like, is it, I guess it's coming up for nearly 40 years, but I remember that the fear of that first reading. Well, even now, when I get a new client from somewhere that makes a booking, that it's stressful. I don't know them. I don't know what they're going to ask me about.
Yeah.
And we as human beings, we want to know what's going to happen. I mean, that's why we've got clients. People want to know what's going to happen. That's why they come to me. But, I want to know what's going to, and I don't know what's going to happen in a reading. So I find it very stressful taking a new booking. And it's just one of those things. And as soon as we start, it's like I always give everybody, 10 minutes or whatever. If they don't feel making a connection, we can cut and refund or whatever. But it's also for me, I get talking to people and it's like, oh, this is, I don't have to know stuff because it just comes out while you're doing it. But that's the sort of the difficulty with doing this sort of work. The traditional, that normal part of us wants to know what we're going to do, because we all want to know how to do what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't with these readings.
Well, I love when you say a lot of your pivotal points are when you stopped and asked questions. You started questioning stuff. You said that a couple of times, and that's really I just find that fascinating too. That that's kind of when it took you, into a different direction. So it's just a good point. Like when you get to that point where you start questioning it, your examples were really so good to let people see that I stopped, I asked the question, and then it took me over here, which was more on my path. I was being,
well, you developed a role that in your referral, you're still using it. It's a little more comfortable for your, we need a lot of people in different roles using their intuition and knowing it's still spiritual. It might not be what, I find that part very reassuring.
And I mean, I like, if anybody's in this realm, if like you're in astrology, if you want to write a guest post on astrology, I just love it. I'll put it up, put a link to your website, whatever, put it out there, goes out. So it's not just me, it's just anyone that wants to write about stuff. I'm a platform for them to, to get out online through that way as well. But talking about that path, following the path, and it also reminds me of my sort of way of thinking about how to live this way. I've never been good at goal setting. Well, I'm not good at goal setting. I've always disagreed with it. And I read something way back when, whatever, that really resonated with me, and it was like, if you're on the spiritual path, it's like you're crossing a river in the fog, and there's these stepping stones so the stepping stones across the river, but it's foggy, so you can only see the stepping stone in front of you. You don't know where you're going. The spiritual path, so the West, the normal sort of thought thing is, okay, I want to go to X and I've got to plot my path and I'll visualize that and I'm going to go there. But the spiritual path is, no, there's your next step, the stepping stone is across this foggy river is just there. So you have to step on it to see the next stepping stone. You just cannot see the next, you cannot see those stepping stones if you're on the spiritual path. You just see the next one. And so for me, I've lived, like when that next stepping stone arrives, I'll have the guts to step on it, even though I don't know where it's going. But when I follow those stepping stones, life works, and it's a wonder. When I get into the sort of plotting and planning role, I crash and burn. So I'm sure it works for a lot of people, but not me. And while we're on that, another thing that I sort of, people talk about the law of attraction, and you visualize your goal. But doing psychic work, what I've found is that I've done that. I love all the law of attraction stuff. I love The Secret, all Rhonda Byrne, all that. I love all those things. But what I found really interesting is that you think of something that you want, law of attraction. So you're going to get into the meditative state, visualize, and you see it, and you're attracted to you. Well, that's no different to being psychic for me. You meditate, and something comes to you, and it's like, so when I achieve those things, for me, if I visualize something that I want, when I achieve those things, was I actually planning it, or was it just seeing the future?
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at that. Yeah.
Because I can't tell the difference. And so what I would teach people if they were wanting to do law of attraction is, okay, find your, map your thing out, know what it is you're wanting. But when you do your visualization, if you can like see it as you're not planning something to come to you, you're actually seeing a bit of your future. What, like you're being a psychic. So if you had psychic vision of your future, you knew it was coming, how would your belief system be around it compared to visualizing the law of attraction and not really being sure whether it's going to work or not? I can't tell the difference.
Well, that's interesting, because when you talk about manifesting, you do visualize it, and the whole idea is the allowing. And so if you're allowing, perhaps it's really your higher self or whatever talking to you.
Yeah.
That this is where we want you to go. This is your path. Follow it. What comes up, and it starts in childhood. There are things in childhood, I'm sure, that you think back of that were there, but now they come around in a whole different way.
Yeah.
So that's really very, very fascinating, because
another thought, another little story you just brought to my awareness with that. We were saying about talking to your higher self. Well, another realization I've had is that we can talk to our higher self, yes, but another interesting thing is we can talk to our future self. I remember many years ago when things weren't going well for me, and I was in a really difficult situation, like things, I'd got myself into it. And again, law of attraction, worrying about something is just the same process. It works just as well. So I'd worried myself into a horrible hole, and very, very difficult to get out of. I was in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. It was difficult. It was not a good situation I wouldn't recommend it. So I'd ended up there, but I created that, no problems at all. But I remember thinking, God, I can't, it was a very sort of bad time for me. I meditated and went on my timeline to the future me to see if everything's were okay. And my future me my future me came and said, it's okay. Things work out, not just okay, but things work out really well. And myself from around this time told myself back then how things were okay. Now I was thinking, probably one of the easier ways of getting out of that sort of mess was to get rid of myself. I'm not depressive. I'm not suicidal, but I think you can put the most positive person in a very, very depressing situation and they'll get depressed. It's not necessarily a mental health condition all the time. Sometimes there are depressing situations, you know, so people don't need to think that they're, you know, they've got a mental health problem most of the time. If they're in a depressing situation, heck, you know, it's okay to get depressed. Myself went back to myself then and basically showed me everything being really, really good. And an interesting thing, it was only probably a year or so ago, in one of my dreams, something happened and I remembered, and I can feel it now. It was like the nudge. Oh, this is the space you go back to yourself. And I was reminded to go back and do that from this time.
Wow.
So not only talk about your higher self, you can talk to your future self if you're in a sort of sticky situation, to know that things come out. Fascinating.
I love that.
Well, yeah, because you know, we talk about healing our ancestors, and that's kind of what we're doing. We're coming back to. I follow a physicist named Nassim Haramein, quantum physicist, and that's what he talks about, that it's space memory, and you actually do go back to yourself, and that's what you. But that's a fascinating story, that you actually knew the moment to go. Oh yeah, go. This is the moment you went back from.
Yeah, it was like,
really cool.
I think it was in a dream. I have some pretty sort of, I mean, I just dream normally like any normal situation, but every now and again I have, like, I go places, I suppose, and I have those experiences, and that just came up, and it was fascinating because it so matched that moment when I reached out from the difficult situation to sort of, okay, this is like, I was just so here, and this is exactly what that future me had come back. So I made sure I went back to my past self to say, yes, like, so everything is okay.
Just out of curiosity, when you get your information, do you see it? Do you hear it? Do you know it? Do you use all of them?
Yeah, that was, I mean, often in the dream state, it'll just be the experience. But yeah, doing reading, it's sort of seeing, feeling, it's a bit of everything. I'm not one particular thing. Just it's just this trust in it. And again, you know, like I keep it dumbed down. I don't know what it, I mean, there's so much I don't know. But
apparently you don't need to know.
Well, no. Right. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's better if I don't know. I don't know why I get this, but I just say it, because then I trust it a little bit more than if I see people struggle. We do a Tuesday night communication where you just volunteer and people come and practice. And some people say they'll start their reading with, well, I don't know if this means anything. And then, so you can see that they're already battling.
Yeah.
It means something because you got it. That's,
yeah. You
know,
I guess it's that there is always that sort of conflict of, you know, am I making this up? Where's this coming from? But it's, I think for anybody skeptical on all these things, I think one of the greatest things anyone can do if they want to have proof of the afterlife and all the other things is actually go and do a mediumship course themselves. I did some training with Susan Geisman some time back. Again, I was actually, I promote the company that promoted her training. So that's how I found her. But I looked at her stuff and I thought, oh, I think I want that. You know, it's like I don't practice as a medium. I do my, you know, I'm predictive. Like I tune in and I tell people what I get, and my clients are wanting to know what's going to happen down this path or this path or whatever. But I would just totally recommend anyone do a mediumship training, because it doesn't matter if you go to a medium and someone picks up and they say, oh yeah, I've got, you know, dead Uncle Fred here, and he says this, this, and this, and you think, oh wow, bang on. And then your skeptical self says, you know, oh, they've checked my Facebook profile, they've done this, they've done that, whatever, you know, all the things that they can come up with. But God, you do a mediumship course and you do a practicing, and you're talking to someone on the other side of the world who you don't know, and you're doing a thing and you're doing the practicing, and Auntie Mabel comes, it like this, you think this is crazy, but someone's saying such and such and such, and they're going, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like when you're getting the evidence for someone you don't know, you haven't been on Facebook checking in a video out, you know that just came out in the middle of nowhere. That will end anyone's skepticism. I mean, if everybody on the planet did a mediumship course, everybody would know that we're souls.
Yeah.
You know, that would be the end of it. But while they're on the other side of the fence, while they're seeing a medium, there's always room for the little skeptic to say, yeah, but they got that from somewhere. When you get it, it's like, whoa, that just came to me from whatever, you know. So I think I would totally recommend any skeptical person about the psychic realms, go to a mediumship course. You'll blow your mind off.
Well, that's how Amy and I actually met through a medium group. And so, you know, I certainly am here to say that's how I met the partner I have in IOTS, you know, and it was about a reading. And we both, to this day, that reading was amazingly accurate, what she gave me and what I gave her. And it was just a one-time kind of thing, but it all unfolded. And if I had had any doubts, and what's very funny is, I'm sure this happens to you, you'll say something and then later on they'll say, well, you said, and you have no memory of it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? It comes in and it goes again.
Yeah. Or somebody says, can you say that again? You go, no. No, I actually can't. So
you know what, we should ask if anybody has any questions for Ian, if he doesn't mind taking a few questions.
I was just going to go there too, because we're like, oh, we only have 8 minutes left. And if you're online, feel free to ask a question. You know, go ahead, Robin.
It's absolutely not a question, but you said something earlier about people always ask, how do you tell that it's not just you thinking of stuff, that it's really spirit coming in? And for my own personal things, I know because the words are different than the words I use.
Yes.
That's what it was. It took a while for that to happen, but after doing it for a long time, I realized that those words aren't words that I would normally use at all. So it has to be from spirit, because that's just not my own vocabulary.
Well, yeah. Well, that's really makes it easy for you. For someone that doesn't get that, they'll be sort of having the battle still. But that's a great little differentiation, isn't it?
Classes.
We have a question online that says, is there a certain meditation that you use, like you said, when you go into meditation?
Well, actually, yes. So back when I had my New Age store, another one of the coincidences was someone was promoting a training. It was an alpha training. Many people will know the Silver method, Jose Silver, the Silver Mind method.
I just bought that book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the course that I ended up promoting through my store was an alpha training that was basically a rip-off of the Silver method. Now that wasn't done from, well, there are hundreds of them out there now, you know, all the same, basically from that. But when so that was the training. It's about the alpha level, the alpha and theta brainwave frequency. Alpha is about 7 to 14, theta is about 7. So fascinating thing. There's some scientific evidence, or something called the Schumann resonance. It's the electromagnetic frequency of the planet. And the predominant frequency is 7.83 hertz. Well, that's the same as 7.83 cycles per second, and that's just between the alpha and the theta brainwave frequency. And I just found it fascinating that, you know, you bring your brainwaves down to that frequency that is exactly the same as the planet, and it's like we're in tune with everything. So my meditation has been for 40 years. It's basically an alpha meditation, so could be the silver meditation or whatever. And when Jose Silva first developed that, I mean, he trained in hypnosis. I'd done all that as well, but he trained in hypnosis, and he was doing something with his daughter, who was a schoolgirl, helping her to recall her information for exams and things. So he would bring her down into an alpha state, and you'd have all the questions listed down about the work she was doing for her to answer. But what he found was, when she was in that level, she would answer questions that he hadn't asked yet. And the actual beginning of the Silver Method was, it was actually a clairvoyancy course, but it was too woo-woo, so they just made it the Silver Mind Method, and it's the Silver Mind Method for everything. But it's basically a clairvoyancy course. So anything, learn how to get your brainwaves down into alpha. Now there are lots of things there. I've got things on the Silver Method and the alpha levels on the side as well. I can put some links down if anyone has any questions later. But
yeah, I would.
Yeah, that'd be great. That was funny because I just heard that story about the Jose Silva. It just popped up on one of my things, and it just started playing, and I started listening to it. So
here, see, these are the synchronicities we learn to pay attention to.
Yeah, and now you're talking about it, so I'm
And now
thinking,
you're
I
talking
might have
about
to check into that.
which means I'm going to be looking for somebody to come talk about that. Another question we have is, most of your information psychic, person to person, or mediumship from spirit? Or do you get a combination? What do you?
Well, okay. Well, I don't do mediumship readings in my own readings. I tend to just tune in with people. Like I say, they just seem to be, and I don't know, my main clients that have been with me for years now, lots of them, they want to know what they're doing in their relationship lives, their work lives, their business lives. They make business decisions on the questions they ask me. They make hiring decisions on, you know, these are the 5 people I'm considering for this position. What do you get on each of them, and all sorts of things like that. But that's the sort of, you know, my boyfriend's gone, you know, is he coming back? That's sort of, there's a lot of that. But, that's the sort of work I do, and I don't know why, I've just never gone down the mediumship path. I do a few email readings, and I remember this one client was sort of, and I do a 7-day thing where they can sort of come back and forward with questions after I've answered their questions and things. And it was just at the end of it, and then the lady sort of came back with another question saying, oh, you know, my husband who I lost, you know, a few years ago, do you get anything from him? And I replied saying, well, look, I don't really do mediumship readings, but I'll just, you know, I'll see what comes up. Anyway, God, I went to bed that night. I wake up in that sort of older state, and this guy's sitting on the bed, scared the poops out of me. You know, I think that's why I don't do mediumship, is because I'm scared of ghosts. And even now, you know, like you wake up in the middle of the night and there's this guy sitting on the bed. And as I sort of got scared, he sort of reached out and he said, it's okay. You know, like he was actually reaching out and saying, don't panic, because I have those things where I see people and I freak out and then they're gone, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was able to go back with some things, but you know, I don't normally do that sort of work. But that guy came back in on a circle a week later with people in America. That guy that was sat in my bed, and I saw all the things he was wearing, he actually came through someone else in one of my practice circles and said some more things through someone else who didn't know anything. It was like amazing. So there is mediumship there, but it's not my forte, I suppose. I just feel it's all too slow for me.
Well, that's great. Cynthia, did you have a question? I saw you unmuted.
No, thank you. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, Ian, I'm right there with you. People have heard me, like, something will, I don't do mediumship. They'll come to tell me something, and you know, my friend there, Amy, will go to an investigation, and I tell them I'll sit in the car. You know, yeah, that's not my, I actually certainly get that. So, wow, it's amazing. The last question I have is, how many practice circles do you join? Do you join practice circles?
I've not been in one for a little while now. It's just because I'm in this, you know, from when I get up and up 6 o'clock in the morning, I start with my website and I update pages. I am in this realm all the time. Well, when I'm not wing foiling on the ocean. So I have been in practice sessions, practice circles. I would only go into one at a time. I wouldn't do multiple ones. And I'll probably go back into another one along the way just because it's fun. But I wouldn't say, I think with a good practice circle, you will synchronize more with people if you've got a regular, like a closed circle of, you know, 6 or 8 people that are there all the time, rather than changing the energy up all the time. It all works, but I think you'll develop a stronger bond or synchronicity if you stick with one for a while, one at a time. I mean, if you wear out of that one, go find another one, maybe. Yeah.
We wanted to thank you. We're at our 9 o'clock. Please do post your contact information. We'll post it, send it to me, and of course I'm going to be in touch. Ian, this was wonderful. I really enjoyed myself tonight. It was very, very fun. And of course, as I'm talking to you, I just got to notice Abraham Hicks released a new so it's always funny when I'm talking to people. We're going to be talking about Jose Silva, you know, the different people that show up, and it really is those synchronicities that make a difference. Amy, do you have any last things you'd like to say?
No, just that it was wonderful, and I just love your approach, and you know, you're just so laid back, and just I'm going to just be led where I'm going to be led, and not overthink it. You know, I mean, you start maybe questioning, but then even that is not overthinking. You're just kind of going, this or this, and then you kind of go with your intuition. And so I think that's great, because sometimes we get too much in our head and try to overthink it. And like you said, you just kind of receive it and it comes to you. And so I love that. I just love that.
It's a lot more peaceful that way, isn't it? Than
it's
he
easy.
seems a lot more relaxed. Yeah.
It's so easy when you don't have to know stuff, you know. You're just going with the flow, following those footsteps in the fog. You know, I don't have to plot it out and know the stuff.
But that's the simplicity about it. You know, I don't have to know anything. And we don't always, like, if we're going to go do a reading or something, think that we're like, oh, I hope something comes through. I hope we have this. And you're just like, I don't have to know anything. It's just going to come to me. So that's what I love about it.
Tarot's a great example of that. I don't know what, I mean, I've read cards now for 40 years. I don't know what they mean.
It's what it tells you. Yeah.
People, there's so much stuff, you know, I've got to know the magician means this, and that means that, and that means, just look at them and see what comes up. And spreads, don't even do that. Just throw some cards down and
good tip. Thanks.
Well, but for some people, they do have that need. I mean, that's the beauty, where your soul leads you is where it leads you. So, and you know, Ian, this will be in our library, so this will be very helpful. I have a picture of someone watching this at night going, is that simple? You know, so thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So for Intuition of the Soul, I'm Kitty, here with
MJ and Ian.
And thank you so much, everyone. And good night. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye for now. Yeah, this was great. Oops, I gotta stop the recording. There we go.
There you go. Ian, that was
No.
amazing.